What up, Buckeye Nation? Welcome to the Buckeye Boys, where we talk about college football with real fans. I'm Devin. Got a loaded show planned for you guys tonight. Got a special guest on tonight. Got a special friend on tonight. Excited to get these guys up here. But first, chat. You know what to do. Appreciate you guys showing up every single night, man. Hit that like button. Hit that subscribe button. The super chats are open. We're going to dive into this Buckeye team. We're going to have a realistic conversation. Do we think they can repeat? We saw what they had to do last year. We saw what the team did last year. We saw a bunch of those players leave for the NFL. Buckeyes reloaded. We've watched 6 games. We're going to break down where we're at. With that, I'm going to need some help. You guys know this first person I'm bringing up here, Bill Green from the Scoop message board. Bill, how you doing, brother?
Awesome, Dev. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good, man. And for the special guest tonight, man, I'm going to bring on Dalton Wasserman from the PFF channel, man. Him, the guys over there on their channel, been killing it, talking about Julian Sayin. PFF put out an award for Julian Sayin today. You guys are liking what the Buckeyes are doing, so I thought, hey, when somebody's talking this good about the Buckeyes, let's bring them on the channel when things are really good. You know what I'm saying, Dalton?
Absolutely. Look, and it's I know most years it's hard to find many bad things to say about them. That's for sure, because they're so darn consistent. But you got to be impressed with the turnover they've had in their roster and the way they're playing early on. They might be the best team in the country.
Yeah. Offensively, defensively, things are definitely humming along. Offensively, might not look like we're used to seeing or like we want, but they're handling business. But on that note, man, last year, before the season started, I think the biggest question was, how far can Will Howard take us, right? This year, lost all the defensive line to the draft, lost our quarterback, lost some key players. So coming into this season, there were 2 main questions that I had as a fan anyway. Number 1, how far can Julian Sayin take us? Number 2, how are we replacing 4 NFL defensive linemen? That was the question I had. And of course, next on the list, defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator, those things. But what I want to start off with, offensive side of the ball, specifically Julian Sayin, with what he has done this year in his first 6 games, starting the season against Texas, number 1 team. They might not have looked, after the 6 games they've played, might not have looked the best, but their defense is sneaky good. We saw what they did to Oklahoma, so I think that brings a little bit more perspective of the performance Julian Sayin brought during the Texas game. But Dalton, let's start with you, man. Let's dive into Julian Sayin. Your thoughts on him, your thoughts on his capability to take this team to a potential repeat this season.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, you look at any team and the first thing you look at is the quarterback. So you look at a team who's had veteran quarterbacks the last few years, and now you're talking about, okay, this is a redshirt freshman, a guy who came in last year and sat behind Will Howard, actually as the 3rd stringer, if I remember that right, behind Devin Brown. And you go, the recruiting hype was what it was, originally committed to Alabama and all of that, but he's looked outstanding. I mean, he's just been unbelievably good. The accuracy is the thing that jumps out the most to me right now by pretty much every metric that we have, between, if you want to go completion percentage, adjusted completion percentage, that adjusted for drops and things of that nature, or even behind the scenes every week when we get the all 22, we chart ball placement on every single throw. And even on that measure, he's easily the most accurate quarterback in the country. And I know, look, this is a big time comp that I'm throwing out there. You've probably heard me say it once or twice on the show, that he just reminds me so much, the mechanics and the accuracy and the way the football comes out the same every time. He reminds me of Drew Brees, man. I just think when you look at his, especially when his feet are set in the pocket, the way that he can operate, and even now as a young kid, you can see times when he gets to his 2nd and 3rd read, or he makes the right throw to that one-on-one matchup. But man, oh man, the ball is so consistently accurate every time that, what I can't believe I can throw a phrase out there like that about a redshirt freshman, that he's the most accurate quarterback in the country. The delivery is so clean and consistent. I absolutely love it.
Yeah, love what you said there, Bill. You've watched a lot of Buckeye football, seen a lot of Buckeye quarterbacks. Give us your thoughts, Julian Sayin. Is he impressing you this year so far?
Yeah, I like Dalton's comparison to Drew Brees, but my thought was, looking at you guys, how young you are, I don't think either of you have ever heard of Drew Brees. So when I do my comparison on the scoop, and I'd be interested to see what Dalton thinks, my comparison is Brock Purdy for Julian in terms of size, accuracy. Neither of them are runners. Neither of them have a gun, but the accuracy and the intelligence. And for a guy that hasn't played a lot of football at this level, he doesn't make a lot of mistakes. He threw some picks early on, but you're just not seeing that now. And I think there's been growth, from the Texas game. And like I said, Texas defense, it might be the best defense in the country. The offense Arch is killing them, but that team's good. So, yeah, Julian, the comp for me, for someone that's actually, under 30 years old, would be Brock Purdy. But Drew Brees, I saw Drew a ton, and I think it's a great comparison. But that's the kind of guy he is. He has to beat you with his intelligence, with his accuracy. He's not Cam Newton, okay, who can make just wild plays out of anywhere. That's not who Julian is. But, I love what Dalton said about him, and I agree 100%. And I think the bottom line for me is it doesn't matter what Julian is in mid-October, okay? If you're an Ohio State fan, I go back way farther than you guys do. We saw John Cooper roll out some teams that were October national champions, but then they fizzled later in the year. So I think what we have to look at with Julian is not the October Julian, but where do we think the January Julian is going to be?
Yeah. On that note, right, we hear Ryan Day. We heard him in his press conference. We hear him talking about, his operation, how he's handling this season. Because as Buckeye fans, you watch Julian Sand. Before he ever started playing ball last year during the season, we heard his processing, his accuracy. We saw that in film too, Elite 11 winner. So we knew that about him. But then you come out in the Texas game, you look at the game plan, and it's like, okay, makes sense. First time starting quarterback, not really trying to put him in any spots. Goal number one, don't turn the ball over, Julian. But we've seen 5 other games since then. Ohio, Grambling, some lesser talent. Minnesota, we saw him air it out a little bit. But you still get the sense that Ryan Day is holding a little back, right? And you wonder how much of that is bringing Julian Sand along at a proper pace so his development reaches its peak potential. Ryan Day stated, it's a different college football game these days with the playoffs. Style points, they don't matter. Definitely not to a program like Ohio State. To make a 12-team playoff for Ohio State, I mean, that is the bottom line expectation every year, and you would have to have some major mess ups to not make it. So, not looking for the style points here. Do you think, Dalton, start with you here, man? Do you think that Julian Sand can handle more than what Ryan Day is currently giving him?
Absolutely, but he's still a young kid, and that's going to progress week to week. And I think we've seen that a little bit at a time each passing week. And look, they're playing pretty good teams, right? You talk about Minnesota is generally a pretty good team with a pretty good defense, right? And he tore them up. Illinois, it was at times it was a little bit ugly, but for the most part, that's a darn talented defense with a lot of experience, and he tore them up. And I'm so glad you brought up the Texas game as well, because I think what they did with Julian in that game, knowing the defense they were playing, knowing it was the first start, and knowing the spotlight of the whole college football world was on those two teams that day, he understood the assignment, right? Yes, don't screw it up. There's certain times you're going to play in low-scoring games where the goal is not to screw it up. And you know what? Your one moment where we want you to unleash it and give Carnell a chance for that touchdown, boom, you made the play. You made the play of the day right there. So, even when you look at a game like that, and there's been a lot of discussions and stuff about, our grades and all of that, he graded like a 70 or a 72, which is solid. That's a solid day, right? Mm-hmm. But it was more about the assignment against that defense and what he was asked to do. It was outstanding. And the level between the two quarterbacks, and all the spotlight was on Arch Manning, he was the calmer and cooler of the two of them. And I really do think that Ryan Day and Brian Hartline, they went to Julian and they said, hey, we're going to be in an ugly one today. We might have to win this game 14-7. We're going to need you to make a handful of throws. Don't try to do too much because we feel like we can get stops too. The fact that he got through a game like that as his first career start tells me he can handle the pressure in those playoff moments too later on, because it was week 1, but that had a playoff atmosphere to it, and he handled it just masterfully. I thought he was awesome in week 1, and I still think that's actually his best moment of the season is that game.
Yeah, big time moment, man. Texas. We've also seen him go out to Washington and break a 22 home game win streak in supposedly the loudest environment. I was at that game. The Buckeyes did not allow the environment to get loud at all. I'll tell you that right now. It did not get too loud. But Julian, why? because Julian Sand composed himself and was able to keep the game under control as long with the other Buckeyes. Bill, your thoughts, man. Julian Sand, can he handle more?
Yeah, I definitely think he can. And I wanted to run something by Dalton. If you look at like 3 teams I would use as a comparison would not be teams that are running up all over the place, fast-paced teams. If you look at Tennessee, Rutgers, Georgia, none of those guys are looked at as, air raid type teams. They're running an average. I think those 3 are averaging 74 plays per game. Ohio State this year is averaging in the 60s plays per game. So what do you make of that? Is that them playing at a slower pace that will eventually increase as Julian gets more experience under his belt? Because I don't look at Ohio State typically as going back to the Jim Tressel days when they would average 61 plays a game. This is really surprising to me, the pace they're playing at. And I didn't know if you had anything on that or if you've noticed that.
Well, I find it interesting, all of that, because you look at having such a young quarterback and maybe you don't want to rush him and go up tempo all the time. And I think there is a part too where they've been ahead pretty early in all of these games and they're able to run the football and milk the clock. And I do think it's an interesting dynamic too, because offensively, everybody thinks about it as just, all right, we're going to call our offense and whatever works, and we're going to find it, right? And some teams are like that. I think about the South Florida Bowls and usually Tennessee is at a faster pace even than that, right? Where they want to just as many possessions as possible. It feels like Ryan Day and Matt Patricia and this team overall, they've embraced this idea that they can just choke teams out, that you're going to get 9, maybe 10 chances to score on us, and our offense is going to control the football, and we're not going to ask our young quarterback to throw it 45 times. We don't have to, and he hasn't been put in a spot like that. So I think he's been in advantageous positions, and you're going to get – there's always a moment. There's going to come a moment, whether it's a big game in the regular season, the Big Ten title game, a playoff game. It's going to come a moment where it's like, hey, Julian, we got to go up tempo. We need you to give it to us, right? That's coming, but no, I think there is a concerted effort. And the fact, too, that sometimes it is about efficiency. And this Ohio State offense is still really efficient. So they could go at a fast pace or a slow pace. And with as much talent as they have, they're going to get the job done. So they might as well get out of these games, choke them out quick, get both dimensions going. And again, they're ahead early in a lot of these games. So it feels like they're milking the clock.
Okay. And then what I've always said, going back 20, 25 years of doing this, there is going to come a time. Now, it didn't happen for Will Howard in the playoffs, but it did during regular season. There comes a time where that quarterback, he's going to have to make a play. They're going to be down 6 with a minute to go, and they're going to have the ball on their own 19-yard line, and he is going to have to drive in the length of the field. Last year we saw that a couple times. Will Howard against Oregon the first game, Will Howard in the Michigan game, he couldn't do it. And then in the playoffs, Ohio State had the lead every game. They never put Will in that position. And that's unusual to get through 4 playoff games with the lead the whole time where you just waltzed your way to the title. Julian is going to be in a position where he's going to be down and he's going to have to open it up and make plays with his arm and his legs under extreme pressure. We will see that at some point. Do you agree or disagree?
Absolutely. You always see it. And honestly, I think even for Will Howard, there was moments last year, maybe they weren't, the famous last 2 minutes of a game situation, but I'll tell you what, that Texas game was tooth and nail, man. There was a couple, even when it was, he had to make a play with his legs, the design run game that was at the run where he was going to score and he fell, right? But even then it's like, man, they're giving you the ball in 4th and 3. They're letting you keep it, and you got to make this play. Like, I think there were moments they just weren't – or I even think about, I was at the game in Atlanta. I think about that very last throw to Jeremiah Smith. It's 3rd and 4 or 3rd and 5. You got one-on-one outside. If Notre Dame gets the ball back, they have a ton of momentum.
You never know.
And you make arguably maybe the best throw of your season if you're Will Howard to really cap off a title run. There are always moments. And even if they're not in the last minute and game-winning field goal and things like that, there's moments. Like, I think of the Texas game especially. That defense was so darn good, and he found a way to just punch through even after an interception early in the 3rd. So, yeah, no, that moment's coming for Julian Sand. It may even come in a week we don't expect it, and you find that adversity. But that's what you want to see is, can your quarterback get you through that adversity?
Yeah, you brought up several instances of Will Howard succeeding when that pressure, the Texas game, and failing as well. Oregon, Michigan, another game, Penn State game. Will Howard had to hold the ball, drive it down. Now, that was more of his legs. Julian Sand That's not his game, right? We saw Will Howard make several good runs there. The O-line, the run game really dominated that. But Will Howard's at the helm of that. No false starts, none of those things, no penalties to put them behind the sticks. So, Bill, that is a beautiful thing. And there's two sides to this coin. There's the coin where number one, the season is extended, right? So less plays, less wear and tear on the body. There's the new quarterback, want to get him involved in it. And then there's this third one where they haven't needed it yet. Like Bill brought up, they haven't needed it. Why? Because of the defense. So we'll dive into the defense. But when the defense is doing what it's doing, it makes it hard. But I agree that the other side of this coin, those are all the things that help us understand the low play counts. The other side is what we're talking about now. What happens when we need it? What happens when we need explosive? There's a lot of Buckeye Nations that's just assuming we can do it. I'm one of those because I've saw Julian Sain in pieces make the throws to Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith. But what happens when you turn up the heat there? So, I love talking about that. On that note, the offense still, the rushing game of these Buckeyes, offensive line. A lot of the national media talks about all the starters that we replace, and they're a little off there. We're not replacing much starters. The guys that are playing now finish the season in the playoffs. That is the offensive line that got us there. The majority of them are. There is one person that is, if I'm correct there, Phillip Daniels. Yeah, that wasn't a contributor to the offensive line. But with that experienced offensive line coming back, losing Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, which I am now seeing how much of a blessing they really were. And I know that's crazy to say. But now we got C.J. Donaldson, Bo Jackson, who is the best running back on the team, and James Peoples, right? Bill, give us your thoughts on this Ohio State running game, some things that you like to see, some things you want to see change. Can this run game get us to the next level, get us to a repeat, or are we going to have to see some things change?
I have not been as impressed as I thought I would be with their physicality up front. I think they started the year with Onyeonwa splitting time with Tigra at right guard, I believe, or left guard, and I thought he was terrible. And I think they thought he was terrible too because he doesn't play anymore. You don't see that 50-50 split anymore. It's 100-0. And see, I don't think Daniels has been played as well as he did last year at Minnesota, but there's, got to be an adjustment period for him transferring over. So I think this O-line can be much better physically at the point of attack. And I think a lot of times this year, Bo has done some things where nobody blocks anybody, and Bo makes yards, which are what great running backs do. Donaldson, I think, is a short yardage goal line guy. See, James Peoples, to me, has not looked as good as he did last year. And I don't know if he's battling an injury right now that we just don't know about. He doesn't look as quick or fast as he did last year. He didn't get a lot of time last year, but when he did, he looked pretty darn good. So I think the run game ceiling is so much higher than what we've seen to date. I think they're going to run the ball better than they have so far. These guys have all played before. They've played in big games before, championship games. So I think it's too soon to panic over – them not running the ball as well as we'd like. The pass protection has been amazing. So, it's 6 games, and I know people want, they want dead on answers, but it's a process. This is, you're not going to be the same team in January that you are in October. Hopefully not. So I think it's a team. I've predicted them to win it all back in the summer, and I'm not the Ohio State writer that picks them to win it all every year like 99% of them do. I don't do that. I really believe in this team, and, I like where they're at right now, okay? I really do. It's a process. It's like building a house. You're not done the first week. And I've watched Ohio State enough. I saw John Cooper have championship teams in September, and they ended up 8-4. So I like where they're at right now. They're going to have to run the ball better. There's no doubt about it. And I think they will because we've seen these guys do it before. So, like I say, I'm not worried about it. I think they're where they need to be at this point in time.
Yeah. Dalton, add to that real fast before we get to you. Offensive line, the experience, dove into, of course, they can be better. The tight end blocking can be better. But when you dive into these running backs, they have a 7% miss rate. They are making people miss 7% of the time, which is by far the lowest in the Ryan Day era, by more than double the lowest. You're normally at a 14, 15% miss rate for Ryan Day at his lowest in the running game. So something to keep it on. I think what you brought up, Bill, good spot. It's a season long process. Dalton, your thoughts on the Ohio State's run game?
I absolutely agree. I think the backs, they're really figuring out the right rotation. And I think Bill's right there that Bo Jackson, he looks like the best one so far. And he looks like the most explosive one so far. That's really the biggest thing is, can you add and can you give us production at the second level of defenses, right? Like, you mentioned Donaldson is a short yardage guy. And I absolutely agree. On the goal line, those short yardage, he's a big 220, 230-pound back. He's going to get that done. But can we start turning 4s and 5s and 6s into 10s and 20s and 30s? That's really the big thing when you start talking about efficient running backs in the run game, because I think that's the part that I've seen. And obviously you play some bad teams, you rip off some big runs, but I don't think I've seen in the big games yet the big explosive runs. I think the offensive line has been solid. It's still a bit of a work in progress in the run game. We have them as a top 10 run blocking team right now. That's in part because of some of the games that they've played against easier opponents. But in the Texas game and the Illinois game, those were the two games where the run blocking we had is maybe a little below average, right? It wasn't spectacular. And I think that's what you guys are conveying is, okay, those are the two best that you've played, or at least best defenses you've played. And
Bill, can you still hear him?
but
I can.
Are you good
I
about
now,
that? I might have cut for a second.
He's back.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
No,
You just
but-
cut for a brief second, just the last 30 seconds.
You're good. It's always the Wi-Fi fun of it. But no, I mean, I think the run game is really emblematic of a lot of this team where we've watched them for 6 games. And honestly, I feel like I'm watching the best team in the country. And yet they're still a work in progress, which is kind of good news right there, right? And I think the running game does kind of embody that. I think it does get a little bit better each week.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a season-long process here. But it helps, right? When you have a defense that the Buckeyes have, it allows the offensive side of the ball to have these growing pains. When you go in to Illinois and the defense creates 3 turnovers, it takes some pressures off the offensive back. So the offseason, we lost Jim Knowles. We had the number 1 defense last year. A little bit of panic in Buckeye Nation. The hire of Matt Patricia was about 50-50. He got received by half of the people. The other half, oh my God, what did he do on his last NFL team? They were really looking at that. But let me tell you something. Matt Patricia, with what he's done with this defense, I've heard multiple national people say Ohio State's defense is the single best unit in college football. It helps when you have players like Arvell Reese, and then you have the defensive line playing above their expectations in my eyes. So Dalton, run us through your initial thoughts of Matt Patricia and how he is doing as a defensive coordinator, not compared to Jim Knowles, but going from the number 1 defense to us talking about this defense, how we are. It's kind of crazy, man, to be honest.
It is absolutely wild. And I thought Jim Knowles last year did just an unbelievable job of adjusting week to week and what he needed to do to win ball games in many different types of matchups, right? Physical teams, spread out teams like Tennessee, things like that. And Matt Patricia's doing really the same thing. I mean, I got to be honest with you, Ohio State, one of the few teams in the country who you feel like at all 3 levels of their defense, they have NFL players. So what is Matt Patricia doing? He's running an NFL defense. And you can see, especially with Caleb Downs right in the middle of it, running everything on the back end, that what they can do schematically, along with just the athletic freaks that they have, Reese, Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs is maybe the most intelligent defensive player in the country. Jermaine Matthews, who has been outstanding on the outside this year and then played the nickel last week. And Devin Sanchez, a true freshman, comes in, and we really don't miss a beat, right? Davison Igmanosin was solid against Illinois as well. You got veteran guys on the back end, and that makes the life on the front end for those front 4 who, don't have a boatload of experience. Those guys got rotational snaps last year, but I think it's just the way that Patricia has enough talent, and he knows it, to do whatever he wants and mess with opposing quarterbacks' eyes. And for young kids, man, when you get all those rotations and zone defenses and safeties flying all over the place, and sometimes there's 3 safeties out there and you just don't know who's coming from where, and then how he's changing things week to week, He's been outstanding. I honestly think Matt Patricia right now, you could very easily argue he's the favorite for the Broyles Award as the best assistant coach in college football right now.
Bill, thoughts on that, man? That's a mouthful to say with her first-time defensive coordinator in the college football game. But, Bill, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. And I was not one of the 50% against the hire of Matt Patricia. I'm not a fan of New England Patriots at all. But it just sort of worked out. I've been in this business so long that I ended up with my guys ended up on that staff, with Matt Patricia under Bill Belichick. And like I said, I don't have any New England Patriot gear I wear. I am not a fan of but my boys were there. So I go up there a couple times a year, and you just have to admire what they did. Jim Knowles, I thought, did a 180 in his career at Ohio State. I thought last year he was amazing in what he did. And this is after year one, when I thought he cost him a national title. Too rigid in that 4-2-5. He couldn't adjust and giving up points in droves, yards in droves. So I was totally against Jim Knowles year one. Came around to credit him with so much last year. But I do think Matt Patricia, I just love the way Patricia can adjust to whoever they're going to play. Where Jim Knowles was a little more rigid with his system. I remember Matt Patricia in playoff games running a 4-3 and then next week running a 3-4. Matt Patricia can do anything. He's a mad scientist. He's a genius. I know it didn't work out as a head coach. I don't know why. Some guys it's just not who they are. But I think for this team, being so young, I love Matt Patricia as the coordinator. And I'm not saying that now after 6 games. I said it in July that he was going to be the right guy for this team. So you don't have to convince me of anything about Matt Patricia. He's my guy. And, I love what they're doing defensively. How can you not? Now, they haven't played any offenses yet. And when you look at that schedule, when do they play a big-time offense? I don't see anything out there. Washington was probably the best offense maybe they played. Texas should be, but Texas was awful, and they haven't been real good all year either offensively. So, but, to cut to the chase, I'm a Matt Patricia guy, have been for years and years. I know what he can do defensively. We don't need him to be a head coach at Ohio State. We need him to coordinate the defense. He can do that. And the talent is off the charts. They're not missing a beat with all those NFL guys leaving. So, I think they're going to be very, very hard to score on, and that's a good thing to have for your team.
Yeah.
Can I throw one thing in there, Dev, real quick?
For sure. Yeah, go ahead.
I think the call on Patricia and being under Belichick all that time, and one thing I am seeing week to week too from him is he clearly comes from the Belichick school of, hey, we're going to come into this game and we're going to take away the thing that we feel can hurt us the most. The number one thing. The Texas game, honestly, I thought it was the run game. Shut it down. Against Washington, this really jumped out to me. Their entire defensive game plan was Damon Williams is not running the football. We're going to make it give it on read option. We're going to play a little extra wide on third down. Kid, you're going to beat us throwing it. You are not. I know you're an electric runner. You are not beating us with your legs today. And he only had 8, if you don't count sacks, because we don't at PFF. It's a whole numbers stats thing with that. But he only ran for 18 yards in that game against Damon Williams. That kid's outstanding. I think he ran for 140 or something last week on Rutgers. It comes from the Belichick school of you're going to beat us left-handed. You're going to beat us with 2 and 3 and 4. Yep.
Absolutely. Yep. That's the best quote there is left-handed. And if you go back and look at the Washington game, you didn't see Ohio State pass rush that kid crazily. They stayed in their lanes. They stayed home. Now, they rushed him, but nobody got out of position where he could tuck it and go. So rather than sacking him, and I don't know this for a fact, but watching it twice, it looked like to me that sacking him wasn't job one. Containing him was job one. They were going to make him throw the ball to beat them. He was not going to pull that thing down and run for 25 yards. So that's what I liked about Patricia there. That it was contain that kid, keep him in the pocket where he doesn't want to be. He wants to get outside and make plays with his legs and his arm. He was never given a chance to do that.
Yeah. I was at that game in the first scramble that Damon tried to do. Washington was driving it down the field, maybe their first drive. When I watched Arvell Reese chase him to the outside and Damon tried to cut back in and Arvell beat him to his own spot, my eyes really popped open to the prospect Arvell Reese was or is. But I wanted to mention that. You guys already brought it up, but I think Washington is probably the most impressive offense that the Buckeyes defense just absolutely shut down. You know, every SEC team that's 5-1 is ranked. Washington is 5-1, not ranked. That's a whole different show. Just had to press my agenda a little bit there. Washington should be ranked. But anyway, this Buckeyes defense, but when you dive into it, right, you wonder, where are the weak spots here? We saw the Illinois game. We heard Illinois' coach afterwards. We heard his comments about how the tempo, the Buckeyes couldn't stop the tempo. You know, it's 34-16, so I beg to differ. But question, we know the Buckeyes are working on that. We know Matt Patricia has ideas there, but the tempo doesn't allow him to get in all those packages that he does, the disguises. So when you look at this defense and you watch the Illinois game, would you say that tempo is something this defense needs to work on? How worried are you about it, Bill? We'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think people kind of freaked out, fans, because you're not going to hold these teams to 6 points every week in shutouts. So, yeah, Illinois, look what they did. What did they score? Did they get 46, 36? No, they got 16, and everybody's freaking out over it. These are young kids on defense with a new defensive coordinator learning a new system. So I think the defense against Illinois was fine. You can't shut people out in today's college football. And you're not going to hold people to 6 every week. So, yeah, Illinois made plays against them. The thing that I like this year about this defense, just a little side note, and Dalton can go check this out on PFF. They've got it. Igbinosun got called last year for 15 or 16 penalties. That is unheard of for a guy that you keep out there every week. This year, 1 penalty so far, okay? And he is playing tremendous. This guy plays his tail off. Nobody plays harder than Igbinosun, but we can't have him with 16 penalties in the season. It just can't happen. So that's been a big improvement there. That makes this defense so much better. And his penalties last year, they came at bad times too. He put him in a lot of bad spots last year. You can't get 16 penalties if it's the first play of the game. But that's where I like seeing what's happened this year, is seeing the way that guy's still playing like a nut. He's still crazy. He plays his ass off every single play, but more disciplined this year. Now, whether that credit goes to whoever, somebody deserves credit for that. And maybe it's Igbinosun himself. But to me, I know everybody's freaking out about Arvell Reese, rightly so. Sonny Styles, rightly so. Caden Curry, Caden McDonald, agree with everything. But Igbinosun, his improvement in just not committing a crucial penalty every game is really helping this defense.
Yeah, on that note, Dalton, to let you go, I kind of want to say this so I can get your opinion as well, Dalton, on the Iggy idea. Dalton, I still want you to hit the tempo thing, but on the Iggy thing, I think a lot of fans aren't seeing that because we still see how physical Iggy is playing, how grabby he still is. The refs just are giving him that leeway this year, and I'm not – with the officiating, I have no idea what is actually pass interference anymore. I think it's just you flip a coin, whatever it lands on, you call it, right? But your thoughts on that, Dalton, and the tempo. Iggy, is he just the type of year he's having?
Yeah, no, it is good, and it is, I think, a little bit more disciplined. Now, there's times he still tests the waters, and there's stretches of games where I feel like, because, the funny part is sometimes even DBs, coaches, and some people will be like, well, could the refs really throw a flag on it every time? Would they do it? And I think there's sometimes, man, Davis said, I think he tests that theory. He's like, you're going to call it every time? Go ahead. I dare you to do it. Slow this game down to where it's 6 hours long. So it is fun to watch, but I do think when you have a guy who's got, he's got the 6'2" frame, he's got the talent that he does, he's got the press technique that he does, and you know as well as anybody, Bill, Matt Patricia's a man coverage head coach. He's a defensive coordinator. He loves it. That's the Patriots again right there. He loves sprinkling in that man coverage. So I think the fact that you have a guy like Igbinosun that you can go, yeah, maybe once or twice a game he's cutting it close or they call him for one. But you know what? The fact that I can get in any zone coverage I want with Caleb Downs and these safeties and rotate things however I want, and then I can take Davison and Jermaine Matthews and even Devin Sanchez now, Lorenzo Styles when he's healthy, and I can take these guys and go man-to-man also anytime, and I make you make those tight window throws. That's such a luxury. I mean, because you get so many teams. I even look at a team like Indiana. They play the most zone coverage in the country. They're going to do what they do. But the fact that Ohio State has a player like Igbinosun who we can go, yeah, hey, lock it up. Let's go, right? Like Illinois' got a couple of good receivers out there, and they can just go, you know what? We think you're better than them. Let's go. Press man, one-on-one. Let's see if Luke Altmaier can win that battle. And obviously they didn't. I think he does look better this year. He is a certain type of corner. There's different styles of corners, but Matt Patricia's using it in an ideal role.
Yeah. And then how do you feel about Caleb Downs? To me, he's a corner, a one-on-one man cover corner playing safety. You can lock him up with anyone. So that gives him sort of an extra man cover defender out there that a lot of teams don't have two. Ohio State's got four out there. So how do you guys view Caleb as a man defender?
I mean, he's definitely solid. I mean, the best thing with Caleb is that he can honestly do anything you ask of him. And I think the best trait for him, and which is why I think he will probably still stay at safety, is his football IQ, the intelligence, even his true freshman year at Alabama, watching that tape. And true freshman DBs don't play for Nick Saban. They just don't. It's not a thing. For him to go out there with a bunch of third, fourth, fifth-year guys in that secondary and watching him, and I go, there's no way that kid's a freshman. He's too smart to be a freshman. Like, what in the world? So the fact that he can, and even if it's man-to-man coverage at times on the inside against a tight end or a slot, you're absolutely right. Caleb Downs, and this is why, to me, there's easily the two best defensive players in college football. And before the season, I thought Caleb was clear number one, but this other guy has had quite a year. Caleb Downs and Ruben Bain. Those are the two best defensive players in college football. And Caleb, I think he's just so special when it comes to like the fluidity of different roles he can play. And this was a big part in their defensive improvement with Jim Knowles, putting him in that kind of like three safety, he was almost like kind of the high Mike linebacker sort of deal. But the fact that he can come down and do that, great tackler, instincts, man, zone, scramble drill, he's outstanding. He knows what to do at all times. So I just think that's what puts him on that level of like safety prospect, like Kyle Hamilton and Derwin James. And he's doesn't have the same build as those guys, because those guys are huge. They're big monsters, but it's the same idea where I could ask this guy to do anything and he's going to do it at an A+ level. He's unreal. Yeah.
Hey, this is way off topic, but I just got to ask this because you brought up Ruben Bain, right? When you look at a defensive, and listen, I know the type of player is absolutely awesome. When you look at the stat line, right, and you compare the stat line with what Caden Curry is doing this year as a Buckeye on the defensive line, and you look at Ruben Bain, where does it come in for you? What's the allure of Ruben Bain, especially when you're diving into the stats? I know defensive line, it's not all about stats. You can't just judge a lineman based off of stats, but break that down a little bit. Looks like we lost Bill, but let me bring him back in here. Dalton, if you could break that down. I know way off topic, but I've been wanting to ask somebody in the know this question.
Sure. I mean, and that's in large part like our offensive and defensive line grades. And when we keep track of total pressures instead of just, because so often the old ways of doing things are just how many tackles you have, how many sacks you have. That's how good you are. Like, that's not how that works. Ruben Bain, he's got 3 sacks, but you can feel the impact on every single play that he's out there. So, and Curry's had an outstanding year. Don't get me wrong. I thought especially that Washington game, that was the breakout game for him. I thought he was best player on the field that day. I think when it comes to Bain, I mean, he is so strong. Like his true freshman year at Miami, he immediately walked in there. And I thought he was the best player on defense. He is so unbelievably strong at the point of attack, pass and run game. He's arguably the best run defender in college football, as well as the best pass rusher. It's crazy what he can do at a two-way level, and he's just certain guys are strong and certain guys are just freaks where you just go, what in the world is this level of lower body strength? And this year he's healthy 100% and he looks even twitchier than he did last year. It's unbelievable what he's doing. I think as far as Curry goes, I think he just needs more reps. I'll be honest with you. I think he needs more reps. And it's funny because that Washington game stuck out for me with him too, because I'm watching this tape and because I was so conditioned to last year's Ohio State tape. When I got I don't know, halfway through it, I was like, my brain just reflexively went, man, Jack Sawyer's having a good game. Dang. And I was like, wait a minute, Jack Sawyer's on the Steelers. Wait a minute. Oh, that's Caden Curry. What am I saying? It looked so much like so many of those Jack Sawyer games from the last couple of years when he was just dominant and just A-plus effort and everything he gives you. But it threw me off that day. That's how well he was playing, because I was like, man, I feel like I see these things with Jack Sawyer every time last year. But no, they're both outstanding players. But Bain, it's to me the level of strength and now the added twitch that's coming with it and his ability to play inside or outside. You can put him wherever you want. You can put him over the center and he'd be the best player on the team. Just unbelievable stuff he's shown so far in Miami.
Yeah, I love it, man. To hit on the Caleb Downs things, and we'll start wrapping up a little bit here. Got two more questions I want to ask you guys. But Caleb Downs, you guys brought up his football IQ. There's a list of things and examples and reasons that we can all on this channel give as to why we know that to be true. But I think one of the biggest things, Ryan Day always talks about how much he impacts the players around him. And when you realize the safety that's playing beside him is Jalen McClain, a sophomore, 3-star in the rankings. I don't pay attention to that, but either way, and you see the level at which he is playing at, it makes you wonder how much Caleb Downs has elevated him, because he himself, Jalen, has talked about the impact that Caleb has had on him. So the leaders like Caleb and Sonny on this team and their football IQ, they just build players around him. It's kind of that intangible. You don't see it on the field. Caleb might not have the best stat line, but it's so obvious that whatever team he's on, he just elevates the defense to a whole new level. But kind of on that same realm, got to put you guys in the spot here, because the Buckeyes, star-studded, star-loaded, Jeremiah Smith, Julian Sayin, Carnell Tate, the list goes on and on and on. But take into account these 6 games and give me most impressive offensive players so far. These might be kind of obvious, but get wild if you want to. We can not say the obvious ones, whatever. But offensive and defensive player, which player has impressed you the most through these first 6 games? Bill, we'll start with you. Put you on the spot, Bill.
To me, it's Bo Jackson and what he's done. Because if you look, and Dalton made a great point that stats don't tell the whole story if you're talking sacks and but stats do tell a story. And if you look at Bo Jackson's yards per carry, he's running behind the same line Donaldson is, Peoples is, and they're averaging less than 5 yards a carry. He's averaging 9 yards a carry. That doesn't happen by accident. So to me, Bo is a true freshman. And I don't think Bo thought he was going to be in this position when he signed at Ohio State. He is in this position, and he's handling it great. I was told that he was a fumbler in high school. He doesn't look like a fumbler at Ohio State. Okay? Caught the ball well. Pass blocking has not been amazing, but he sticks his nose in there and he tries, and he's learning. I know he never did that in high school before. So Bo's been the thing to me. I mean, he's better than Peoples and Donaldson. They're better off with the ball in his hand than those other two. Dramatically better. So offensively, it's Bo for me. And I'm stunned. It really stunned at what I'm seeing. And I liked him coming out of high school. I did not think he would be the feature back through 6 games.
Yeah. Dalton, we'll go to you offensively, then we'll all circle back around to defense.
Yeah, offensively, one stat I want to throw in there for Bo Jackson, too, is, and I think this is the most important part for me when I'm breaking down some of his underneath metrics, 14 runs of 10 or more yards. The rest of the team has 14 runs of 10 or more yards. That's the thing that Bo, to me, is bringing right now, is that he's just more explosive. He can create a little bit more at the second level than those other 2 backs. That's the big difference. The obvious one for me, it's Julian Sayin. I mean, the composure, the accuracy, everything I've been talking about for the last couple of weeks with him. But if I'm going to throw a different guy in there, look, this is a step up for Carnell Tate. He really has come out and proven these first 6 games that, because when there was first round talk about him, prior to the season, I was like, I don't know yet. This guy feels like a 2. And even last year, he was the 3, and he felt like, okay, on any other team, depending on the team, maybe he's a 1, maybe he's a 2. No, he's playing right now. The way he's playing right now, Ohio State has 2 number 1s. I like clear cut. I can see why right now, and it was at the Minnesota game that he teed off right for like 150. I think so. That was a game I watched him and I was like, oh, he's out here to prove it. He's coming out here to prove it. He's winning downfield. Defenses know they want to shade all these coverages towards Jeremiah. It's not working anyway because Jeremiah's a freak. But I think Carnell Tate, and he was good last year. Don't get me wrong. He was good. He was playing third fiddle behind Jeremiah and Emeka Ibuka. We see how good he is now in Tampa. But I think Tate has taken another step. And the fact that if you want to lean towards number 4, be my guest. Carnell Tate's coming to get you now, too, and he can go for 150. And we're really starting to see him dominate games that I don't think we saw in that way last year.
Yeah, with Carnell Tate, 9 receptions for 183 yards in the Minnesota game. And it's so wild because when you ask people this question, it's Jeremiah Smith, it's Julian Saint, it's Carnell Tate. These guys, the expectation of those guys is so high that it's almost like talking about them gets boring because every single game you're talking about how good they are. So on that note, Bo Jackson, Jeremiah, there's so many people we can talk about. But to me, this guy he's definitely not a finished product, but very surprising that he came in and he took this position. And that's Phillip Daniels at the right tackle position, going from Minnesota, coming in here. You're dealing with getting Ethan Anianwa in the portal, thinking he's your left tackle. He's going to start. Then we hear Austin Sareveld, which he could be on this list too, going to left tackle with what he's done this year is just absolutely, it's kind of off the charts, really. But then you think, all right, Ethan's going to right tackle. No, man. It's the lesser of the options according to the portal. Everybody was excited about Ethan, but here comes Phillip Daniels, a relative of Ohio State offensive star. I always forget his name, but he's the cousin to the chat's going to tell me in just a second. But either way, what he has done coming in here, a lot of growth to do, but it was very surprising and very impressive to me to see him come in here and do this. But the list that we could talk about here, love Bo Jackson, love Carnell Tate. You got the Jeremiah Smith, Max Clare coming in, really picking up some steam here. So offensively, plenty of talent for the Buckeyes to bring this thing home again for a repeat. Defensively, we're in the same boat here, fellas, defensively, with so many players that you can talk about. But Dalton, we'll start with you. Pick one, bro.
Wow. Pick one of the million of them, huh? Man, oh man. I'm gonna say because it's the group that I had the lowest expectation for, and I think fairly so coming in, right? You're returning Styles and Reese at linebacker. The secondary's got guys coming back. I got to look at this defensive line. And our highest graded player so far this season for Ohio State on defense has been Caden Curry off the edge. I think it was a big concern with this front 4 that, look, you lost 4 starters and 4 guys that were always on the field. They didn't get into 2 heavy rotations last year with those veteran guys they had up front that all 4 of them got drafted, right? Did Hamilton get drafted? I think he did.
He did.
Yes.
Fifth round.
5th or 6th round. Yeah. So, I mean, to replace those front 4, that was something I was concerned about. You mentioned the shuffling on the offensive line. I was concerned about the defensive line because I go, man, these are a lot of guys who have not played a whole lot, right? And Caden Curry coming in and look, he's got 23 pressures and 6 sacks through his first 6 games. It's unbelievable stuff considering the shoes that he's filling of 2 guys who are in the NFL and contributing already. I mean, that's great stuff. Cade McDonald on the inside it feels like a Tyreek Williams clone. Honestly, he's just a big monster run stuffer in the A-gaps. But I got to go Caden Curry. I think I've just been so impressed with what we've seen from him so far in tough matchups against good quarterbacks. I mean, I know Arch Manning got off to a slow start, but he's a good athlete. He can do a lot of things. Damon Williams to get pressure on him and do it the disciplined way that he was asked. Luke Altmaier and that Illinois team. Look, they got a good pair of offensive tackles, and Altmaier's a really good quarterback. Curry every single week is bringing it. And I hate to – sometimes same school comps are what they are, but it does remind me so much of what Jack Sawyer brought the last few years. Every single week. Maybe you don't get the splashy 8-pressure 3-sack game every week, obviously, because he'd be Reuben Bain if he was doing that. But it's a thing where you know what you're getting out of him. And the fact that we already have that out of another star player on this D-line after losing those players last year, that's big time.
Yeah, you stole mine, to be honest with you, Dalton. I was super excited. I had a bunch of stuff to talk about. You just said everything. So props to you, man. He was very surprising because, to be honest with you, he was probably preseason when I talk about the defensive line, I might have got to him 4th, right? I would talk about Kenyatta Jackson, Bo Atkinson coming in. What's CJ Hicks going to do off the edge this year? So there were some players there that I brought up before him, and he is now the number one on the defensive line. I'll agree with that. Bill, your thoughts defensively? We got to pick one out of. I'm sitting here thinking now, and it's just like, dude, I could literally give a reason for every player on this defense. But Bill, who you got, man?
Well, I've been around a lot longer than you two guys, obviously.
Yeah.
And when you cannot stop the run, it affects every single area of your football team. And I don't care what you're going to – when you got to score 50 to win, 45 to win, you don't have the ball, they're running it down your throat, offense is never on the field, defense is gassed, you're dead. And Caden McDonald, to me, I never thought he would be this good. I could say the same thing about Jalen McClain, and I guess – when you're in this business, you shouldn't come on talking about all the guys you were wrong on. But I was wrong on those two, especially McClain. But Caden McDonald is a rock on the inside, and you cannot run the ball on them. And that's part of the Patricia thing of making people left-handed. Go ahead and have to throw the ball 35, 40 times against Ohio State. I wish you the best. But Caden McDonald's a rock on the inside, and when you're not getting gashed up the middle, it just makes things so much better. It affects every area of your team. And that's why I like Caden McDonald. He's a rock on the inside. I think he's better than Tyleik Williams was. And I love Tyleik Williams. But so far, Caden McDonald's been way better than I thought he could be.
Throw a quick stat at you here, and I know the grades are always a topic of conversation, but right now, and he hasn't played as many snaps as some other guys in the country, but he has the number one run defense grade of any defensive.
Really? I did not know that, but I love what I see. Now, I don't watch everybody like you guys do. You see everybody in the country. So that's why when people like me say, oh, he's the best in the country, and people are like, well, what other teams have you watched? And like, oh, no one. No, I don't know he's the best in the country, but I believe what you guys do and what you guys see. To me, he's a rock for Ohio State. And when you don't have that and people can run the ball on you, it affects every area of your team. So that's why I would mention Caden McDonald up there with Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, Caleb Downs, the rest of the crew. But Caden McDonald's key to this defense. Huge key.
Yeah. I'm a sucker for defensive tackles. Tyleik Williams last year, I picked him for preseason defensive MVP for the team. Defensive tackle in the first round, I wasn't far off there. But last year, Ohio State's red zone defense, there was a big common denominator there. That common denominator was K-Mac, man. Caden McDonald every single time. He's doing it again this year, really focused on being able to stay on the field for more plays, and it looks like he's accomplishing that goal. Great picks there. You brought up mine, Bill. It's Jalen McClain. Talk about him, one of the youngest players on this defense. The secondary filled with veteran players such as Caleb Downs, Jermaine Matthews, Lorenzo Styles. And then you add in what Matt Patricia is doing on defense, the schemes he's putting in, and talk about the lack of experience Jalen McClain has. And even though I don't focus on this, where he was in the ratings, a 3-star coming up, starting as a sophomore, when you got Fahim Delane coming in, and you have – this is Ohio State secondary. It's just super impressive to me. Long way to go, right? Didn't have his best game in Illinois, but the dude's a sophomore, and I love the potential that this cat has and what he's going to do. Got to throw an honorable mention to Tywan Malone here on the defensive line, just because what he's been able to do when Edric isn't. He's having some troubles this year so far. So Tywan to come in, Illinois, his best game as well. It's super exciting to see that. So, man, do the Buckeyes have enough defensive power to repeat? I'll answer that for everybody. The answer is yes. Let's wrap this up here. Let's get the predictions. What do you guys think the Buckeyes are going to do regular season here? Maybe give me who you think their toughest game is in the regular season, and where we think these Buckeyes are going to end up. Can they repeat? Bill, let's start with you on this one.
Well, I picked them to repeat, and again, I'm not the Ohio State writer that picks them every year like you have to. I don't have to, and I don't. But this year I did. And for toughest game, I don't know. I mean, I think they're going to beat Michigan every year. They never do, so maybe this is the year they beat Michigan. I really thought Penn State had everything this year, which probably shows what a dummy I am. They can't beat UCLA. I really thought they were going to be super this year. I was so high on them. I'm a James Franklin guy, the only one in America. Even his family doesn't believe in him. I do. But that stuff's falling apart. Ohio State won't play Oregon. I don't know if Oregon's as good as we thought they were going to be. Play Indiana, who I love. I love the SIG. I think they're going undefeated. I really do. I don't see who's going to beat them. I don't see who scores. You're going to have to score 24 to beat them, and that's being conservative. Who's going to score 24 on this team? I don't see how you do it. Now, it's football. Things happen, turnovers. But from where I'm sitting right now, I think it's a 12-0 team that plays Indiana for the Big Ten title.
Yeah, Dalton, preseason, right? I listed the games I was worried about. Penn State was on that list. They're not on the list anymore. We saw what happened there. I think 2 of the top 4 preseason teams at one point weren't even ranked. Texas picking it up a little bit. So a lot of changes here. Where are you at? Obviously, because of the past, the scum game. So I call them scum, but the scum game, and that's just on it. But minus that, do you see any games we really need to pay attention to? Where you think the Buckeyes are going to end this season at, Dalton?
I think for Ohio State and Indiana, it would be something. And like Bill said, you got to play the games. That's why we play the games, and you always get those big upsets in college football. But I think when you look at the rest of these schedules, we should expect both of these teams to finish 12-0 and then to play both of them undefeated in that Big Ten title game. Indiana's schedule is pretty soft the rest of the way. They have a trip to Penn State, always dangerous to go in there, but they get through that one. That's really the only one I see for them. And for Ohio State, honestly, I think almost by default you have to say the Michigan game. They're going on the road, and it's just the mental hurdle. And you know what? That will most likely, if you were going to get a moment in the regular season, especially against a guy like Wink Martindale calling their defense, that's the moment where we may see, hey, saying one more time like you did against Texas, keep it cool. We're not asking you to throw for 400, but there's going to be a couple moments in this game because when you played Ohio State, you guys know this is the game. This is the game every year, and it doesn't matter. We saw it last year. It doesn't matter what either team's record is. You're going to get a pretty darn good ball game. So I think the Michigan one in the regular season clearly is the one that stands out to me, but I have full expectations of this team to go 12-0, and they may just be the best team in the country, and I think they've shown that through the first 6 games.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, with the past, I said it before, that scum game to India, one to keep an eye on. Penn State no longer. What UCLA is doing right now is really surprising me, and it makes that game preseason, didn't even look at that game. I was like, man, that's easy. You look at it now, part of me wants to say keep an eye on that game, but the other part has said, well, look how we contained Damon Williams in Washington. So it's like, obviously that's going to be a more competitive game than we realized with UCLA's momentum and what they're doing. But I expect the Buckeyes to go undefeated as well. When you get to playoff time, it's different. Bill brought it up. Championship games in October, championship teams in October, they don't get it done, man. You got to be a championship team the whole time. And in the playoffs, man, Ryan Day last year, it was leave no doubt. He's talking about it again this year because why is it leave no doubt? One play, one call. That's all it takes to make a game change. But I believe this team is plenty talented enough to go back-to-back. I'm excited for what we're seeing. I love that we can go to Illinois, beat them 34-16, and come out of there with a long list of things that we can improve on. That's impressive when you ask me, and I can see these Buckeyes. Ryan Day, loaded with NFL experience, his coaching staff, and that's what this season is now. So the way they're handling it, the low play calls, sometimes it makes the games more boring. Sometimes the fans get a little upset. But, man, I trust him. He showed that he knew what he was doing last year. The Buckeye offense from the regular season to the playoffs looks quite a bit different. Not going to be surprised if we see that list this year. Been an amazing show, man. Chock full of information. Bill, you got any final thoughts for Buckeye Nation people in the chat?
My final thought is, I don't know how often you get Dalton on this show, but if you can get him as often as you can, I mean, he's tremendous. So great job by you, brother. I'm so impressed by you. So been good being with you guys. I've enjoyed it, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, Dalton.
I appreciate that big time, Bill. Honestly, sorry to step on you there, Dev. I think, yeah. I mean, Ohio State obviously is going to be a team we're watching just about every single week, right? And so, to be on the P's and Q's there is big time for us, and big time for on the PFF College Football Show. Man, we just hit 30,000 subscribers. So if anybody here is not subscribed yet to that, we didn't cover this week's game against Wisconsin because we're kind of expecting that to be one-sided. But certainly Ohio State is a big topic of discussion on our show. And want to point out one thing. We do get some things right sometimes. Last week when we previewed Ohio State, Illinois, I called the exact score, 34-16.
You did.
If you weren't watching, I called the exact score. And it's a weird score, but I called the exact score. So sometimes over at PFF, we do get some things right. Some people will doubt us, but we get some things right sometimes.
Yeah, like I said, I've been watching you guys, you and Max over there do an amazing job. I just wanted to invite you on until I heard a lot of good things about Ohio State. I've been hearing it, so I invited you. I'm just messing with you. But it's been an amazing conversation with both of you guys. It's an honor to be on here with both of you. I got Max coming on next week, so we got the other side of the PFF channel coming on. Go check those guys out, seriously. Do it right now so you don't forget. Go over to the PFF channel, hit subscribe, support those guys. You'll love what they got to say about your Buckeyes this year, I promise. So Buckeyes, a lot of momentum on to Wisconsin. Me and B. Moses will be at that game. We'll be going live from that game. So let's keep the momentum up, looking for these Buckeyes to dominate this game. But been an absolute pleasure, fellas. Chat, we appreciate you guys so much. Hit that like button on the way out if you already haven't. Hit that subscribe button. And we appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Go Buckeyes. We'll see if Dalton gives us an IO, but OH.
IO?
Yes. Stay blessed, Buckeye Nation.